Hey everybody, Jason here and welcome to another episode of Driver's Paddock. It's the year 2024 and behind me is a year 2000 Toyota MRS. I'm going to be doing a track review of it, so make sure you watch to the very end to hear my thoughts. Let's check it out. All right, everybody, we have the MRS behind me, and let me tell you just a little bit about what's done to it. So it has KW V1 Coilovers, it has Whiteline Sway bars, it has EBC yellow brake pads, it has a seat, it has a half cage, and it has these beautiful RPF1 rims wrapped in Falken RT660, so the 200 tread wear. So let's head out on track and let's see what the MRS is all about.
Right off the bat, this feels super weird. Honestly, I am gonna need some time to get used to the right-hand drive, and even pulling over to grab my seatbelt here, that is very different. So diff is really holding this car back.
just finished my first 3 laps in the MRS and I'm already blown away. It is so much fun. And if you watched my other videos, you'll know how I work up to driving a car. You know, I see what's available to me. Is lift-off oversteer available to me? Is power oversteer available? What's the balance of the car like? What are the brakes like? What's threshold braking like? So I'm really starting to explore the limits a little bit. But so far, oh my goodness, I love it. And I'll elaborate on that as I drive it more. But as a reviewer of cars, especially on the track, you have to think about what this car, who this car is made for, and what time period it's from. And if you think back to the early 2000s, this car was about $25,000, and it competed with cars like the Mazda Miata, and it competed with cars like a fully optioned Civic Si. It was priced around the same. This car being rear-wheel drive, manual, mid-engined, wow. And it definitely has that amazing mid-engine characteristics. It has a low moment of inertia. It rotates really well, as you can see just in my warm-up laps. I'm doing a lot of lift-off oversteer to get it to rotate. I'm trying to trail it in a little bit more with the brakes to see how much it'll rotate. And it's not snappy at all. It's really, really fun to drive. So let's go back out there. Let's drive it a bit more. Let's see how fast we can go. And then I'll give you my full thoughts. Let's go.
I really have to get used to this left-hand shifting, right-hand drive business. Oh, the heel toe is just so easy. Why can't they make pedal boxes like this? It's amazing.
I'm blown away. This car is so responsive, so analog, and just so much fun. It rotates so well. Like I said earlier, I wish it just had an LSD. If it had an LSD, oh my goodness, I'd be asking the owner if he was selling. But let's talk a little bit more about what I think about the car, driving dynamics and such. And the thing is, I believe the claims that people say that this thing snap oversteers, and again, it abruptly kicks the rear end out. Just think back to the early 2000s. Who could have afforded this car? Again, it competes with Miatas and Civic SIs, optioned out Civic SIs. If this car came out today, people would be crashing them left, right, and center. And I don't think it's the car's issue. Like, you know, I think it's really driver issue. If you think about it, all these new cars, they all have these fancy traction controls, and you know, they have ABS and all these other things. This car is so analog, it's so raw, and for that reason, I think it catches a lot of people by surprise. And just think back, like what was mid-engine back in the day, like Ferraris, you know, NSX, cars like that. And think about it, what's mid-engine today? Right? And so a lot of people don't understand how to drive a mid-engine car. You drive a mid-engine car very different than an FR or FF car. It has very low moment of inertia. It rotates really well. The rear end can kick out. The front end really tucks in, and people don't expect that. And so if you are aggressive on the brakes and you turn in, what's going to happen? The rear end's going to kick out, right? And so with the 4060, the front is pretty light. So just keep in mind, when you brake, you shift the weight to the front of the car. You load up the front tires, and the rear becomes loose. And with the engine being back there, of course, it's going to kick out, right? And with the steering rack being like this, when you correct, if you overcorrect, of course, once the front wheels grip up, it's going to snap back the other way, snap back the other way. And so I think the most important thing in this car is don't overspeed into corners, because if you overspeed into a corner, you don't have very many options. If you brake hard or you trail brake in turn, the rear end's going to kick out. If you overspeed, basically try your best, brake in a straight line, and then kind of square off the corner. You've already made the mistake. Don't make that mistake worse. And another thing I think that people don't talk about is this car only has 138 horsepower. So power oversteer is not available to you. So if you get into a corner and the car starts sliding, you have to commit to the throttle. And just think of a very high horsepower rear wheel drive car. If you just stand on the throttle, the rear wheels will just spin like doing a burnout, right? So you can have that power, that weight shift to those rear wheels to really stabilize the car and get you out. And then just it's about counter steering and blending off the throttle. But this car only has 138 horsepower, and with these characteristics of this rotation and this low moment of inertia, and the 40-60 weight distribution, like I said, none of these things are bad. This car is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, it is so fun. But I hate to say it, I think it's driver issue for a lot of the snap oversteer, crashing scenarios that we read so much online. This car is amazing. It, like I said, it's not perfectly balanced, but it listens to you. It does everything you tell it to. And when it does oversteer, when it does slide, it's because well, the only thing is the driver inputs, right? You have to be really smooth with this car. You can't overcorrect, and you can't overspeed into corners. You don't have very many options to save it. So I just opened up the front part of the car, and I want to show everyone this. How cool is this frunk? Literally, the ground is right there. That is so cool. Wow. Also, one thing I forgot to add is this car actually has the TRD factory kit, so that's why it looks a little bit different than some of the other MRS MR2s out there. Just looks so cool. So just a little bit more about the MR2 or the MRS. Essentially, the motor is here, and it's actually transverse mounted, and the gearbox is actually somewhere over here. And it's not longitudinal. Basically, it's kind of like a front row drive layout, just moved back. And that speaks to a little bit about its weight distribution. If this was horizontally mounted, it would be a little bit different. I think it'd be a bit better, but still an absolutely amazing layout and so much fun.
Okay, Toyota MRS. I get my final 5 laps with this car, and I'll give you my final thoughts. Guys, MR2, let's try and see if we can get it to rotate and have some fun. Let's go. Get it to rotate. Beautiful. I love this car. Brake. Here the brake's a little bit long. Get the car to rotate. It's so controllable. It is so controllable. Just don't overreact. Such an amazing car. Woo! Lift, get it to rotate. This car is amazing. Oh my God, get it to rotate. Get it to rotate. Oh my goodness.
Okay, these cars were around $25,000 when they first came out, and I think they're around $25,000 to $30,000 24 years later. And if you think about who could have afforded this car back in the day, I mean, it competes with Miatas, it competes with optioned out Civic SIs, and of course, people are going to be crashing these. These are no traction control, no ABS, mid-engined, rear-wheel drive with a manual. What do you think is going to happen? If this car came out today, people would be crashing them all the time. And that's no fault to this car. This car is amazing. It has no inherent issues that you're driving around. It is not the most balanced car. That's right. It has, 40-60 weight distribution, but it is so controllable and it is so much fun. It has, of course, with the mid-engine, it has a low moment of inertia. It rotates and it's not crazy. It doesn't just snap on you like that. And if it does come out, it's because you wanted it to come out, or if you gave it the input to rotate. And I'll talk a little bit about this. And if you brake, you're essentially shifting the weight to the front tires and the rear is light. And again, with a mid-engine car and you turn it abruptly, of course it's going to kick out. Or if you abruptly throw it in, with harsh inputs, of course the rear end is going to kick out. And the thing is, the steering, actually, the ratio is much faster than I expected it to be. Compared to, let's say, like a Miata. And I can see why people get the snap oversteer. It's because if the rear kicks out and you lift, you're good, and you have a big overcorrection with such a quick rack. As soon as the front tires grip, of course it's going to snap one way and it snap the other way and snap the other way. I think the correct term for that is ass slapper. But if you get ass slapped by this car, it's your own fault. I mean, this car may have more of a tendency to do that because of the 40-60 weight distribution, because of the faster rack. And one other thing that people don't talk about is this has 138 horsepower. So power oversteer is not available to you. And when you get on the gas abruptly, it's not going to shift the weight to the back abruptly and give you that grip back or spin the rear wheels. So as soon as that front end bites, you're going to be kicked the other way. And again, I don't think it's a fault to this car. Not everyone can handle this car, but inherently it has no vices. It has no issues that you're driving around. It's an amazing car. Honestly, everybody, I'm blown away. I have few words. And the early 2000s were a time that I wish I was old enough to have my license. Times were simpler, no fancy differentials. The cars were lighter, the cars were simpler, and analog. This is as analog as it gets. Manual, rear-wheel drive, mid-engine. What else could you possibly ask for? What an amazing car. And the thing is, this car inherently doesn't have any vices. You're not driving around any problems. And although not everyone can handle this car, it rewards you for good driving and it'll tank slap your ass for bad driving. The early 2000s, the MRS, the MR2, a relic for when times were simpler. Simply legendary.